Pray for peace, and may our differences be put aside as we work towards national development and reconciliation. We thank you for the strength of mind, body, and spirit so that solutions can be found and implemented to the betterment of everyone. We pray that you shower us with your everlasting love so that justice, fairness, and equality be served to those who most need it. We pray that you keep everyone in our beloved country safe and secure in their ideas, possessions, and lives, especially our Lumad brothers and sisters in Mindanao. Turn us into beacons of hope, light, and optimism for those in need. At sa iyong kaarawan, mahal na ina, na nagsisilbing inspirasyon sa amin, naway patuloy po kayong maghatid ng panibagong pag-asa sa amin at gabayan mo ang bansa tungo sa kaliwanagan. These we pray in the name of your beloved Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. The Secretary will call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan Peter Compañero S., Cayetano P.I.S., Defensor Santiago Ejercito, Enrile Escudero Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Osmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar. Senate President Drilon.
14 senators are present. The chair declares the presence of a quorum. The Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the Journal of the 18th Session, September 7, 2015, and consider the same as approved.
Any objection? Hearing none, the reading of the journal of the previous session, session number 18, is hereby dispensed with and the same is hereby approved.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend for 1 minute.
1 minute suspension.
Senator Marcos.
Ano ba si Senator Marcos? He's
Other matters na lang. Oji. Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Secretary will read the reference of business.
Messages from the House of Representatives. Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 1 September 2015, it designated Representative T. Vice Representative Cayetano as conferee to the Bicameral Conference Committee on Disagreeing Provisions of House Number 5217, entitled An Act Governing the Accreditation of Microenterprise Development Institutions, and Senate Number 2752, entitled An Act Strengthening Non-Government Organizations Engaged in Microfinance Activities for the Poor.
To the Committee on Rules.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 1 September 2015, it designated Representatives Gatchalian de Rosario, Giao, Alvarez, and Redon as conferees to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Number 5912, entitled An Act Expanding the Coverage of Incentives Granted to National Athletes and Coaches and Appropriating Funds Therefore Repealing for the Purpose Republic Act Number 1964, also known as the National Athletes, Coaches, and Trainers Benefits and Incentives Act of 2001, or Sports Benefits and Incentives Act of 2001, and Senate Number 2898, entitled An Act Expanding the Coverage of Incentives Granted to National Athletes, Coaches, and Trainers Repealing for the Purpose Republic Act Number 1964, also known as National Athletes, Coaches, and Trainers Benefits and Incentives Act of 2001, and appropriating funds therefore.
Rules.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 1 September 2015, it ratified the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions on House Number 4275 entitled An Act Defining the Role of the Department of Labor, Employment, and the Local Government Units in the Establishment and Operation of the Public Employment Service Office, PESO, and the operation of job placement offices by non-government organizations, NGOs, and state universities and colleges, SUCs, amending for the purpose Sections 3, 6, 7, and 9 of Republic Act No. 8759, otherwise known as the Public Employment Service Office Act of 1999.
Archives.
Committee Report number 232, submitted jointly by the Committees on Education, Agriculture, and Finance on House Number 5055, introduced by Representatives Yu and Kuhuang Kuke, an act separating the San Jose National High School Daniel C. Mantos Annex in Barangay Daniel C. Mantos, Municipality Mahayag, Province of Bocas del Sur, from the San Jose National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Daniel C. Mantos National High School, and operating funds therefore recommending its approval without amendment. Sponsors by Cayetano P. Committee Report number 233 by the Committees on Education, Arts, and Culture, and Finance on House number 4853, introduced by Representatives Mercado and Cojuangco, entitled An Act establishing a national high school in Barangay Hubas, Municipality of Libagon, Province of Tarlac, Leyte, to be known as Libagon National High School, and appropriating funds therefore recommending its approval without amendment. Sponsor Senator Cayetano P. Committee Report number 234 by the Committees on Education, Arts, and Culture, and Finance on House number 4261, introduced by Representatives Treñas and Cojuang Kuke, entitled An Act converting the Bacau Elementary School in Barangay Bacau, Municipality of Mandurriao, Iloilo City, into an integrated school to be known as Bacau Integrated School, appropriating funds therefore recommending its approval with amendment. Senator Cayetano P. Committee Report number 235, Committees on Education, Arts, and Culture, and Finance on House number 766, introduced by Representatives Aguiao and Cojuang Kuke, an act separating the Kalinga National High School sa Legseg Annex in Barangay sa Legseg, Municipality of Balbalan, Province of Kalinga, from the Kalinga National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Balbalan National High School, appropriating funds therefore recommending approval without amendment. Sponsor Senator Cayetano P. Committee Report number 236 by the Committees on Education, Arts, and Culture, and Finance on House number 4920, introduced by Representatives Tiangco and Cojuang Kuke, an act establishing a National Science High School in the city of Navotas, Metro Manila, to be known as Navotas National Science High School, and appropriating funds therefore recommending its approval without amendment. Senator Cayetano P. Committee Report number 237 by the Committees on Education, Arts, and Culture, and Finance on House number 3652 by Representatives Amatong and Cojuang Kuke, an act separating the Bacungan National High School Palandok Annex in Barangay Palandok, Municipality of Leon B. Postigo, Province of Zamboanga del Norte, from the Bacungan National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Palandok National High School, and appropriating funds therefore recommending its approval without amendment. Senator Cayetano P. Committee Report number 238 by the Committees on Education, Arts, and Culture, and Finance on House number 1268, introduced by Representatives Padilla and Cojuang Kuke, entitled An Act separating the Alfonso Castañeda National High School Abuyo Annex in Barangay Abuyo, Municipality of Alfonso Castañeda, Province of Nueva Vizcaya, from the Alfonso Castañeda National High School, converting it into an independent national high school known as Abuyo National High School, operating funds therefore recommending approval without amendment. Senator Cayetano P. Committee Report number 239 by the Committees on Education, Arts, and Culture, and Finance on House number 3233, introduced by Representative Bulot Begtang, entitled An Act separating the Santa Marcela National High School Consuelo Annex in Barangay Consuelo, Santa Marcela, Apayao, from the Santa Marcela National High School, converting it into an independent national school to be known as Consuelo National High School, and appropriating funds therefore recommending approval without amendment. Sponsor Senator Cayetano P. Committee Report number 240 by the Committees on Education, Arts, and Culture, and Finance on House number 3654, introduced by Representatives Amatong I and Cojuang Kuke, entitled An Act separating Bacungan National High School Talinga Annex in Barangay Talinga, Municipality of Leon B. Postigo, Province of Zamboanga del Norte, from the Bacungan National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Talinga National High School, and appropriating funds therefore recommending approval without amendment. Senator Cayetano P. Committee Report number 241 by the Committees on Education, Arts, and Culture, and Finance on House number 4287, introduced by Representatives Flores and Cojuang Kuke, an act separating the Alapitan National High School Little Baguio Annex in Barangay Little Baguio, Municipality of San Fernando, Province of Bukidnon, from the Halapitan National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Little Baguio National High School, appropriating funds therefore, recommending approval without amendment, Senator Cayetano P. Committee Report number 242 by the Committees on Education, Arts and Culture, and Finance on House number 4263, introduced by Representatives Hernandez and Cojuangco K, entitled An Act Separating the Libertad National High School, Colongulo, Annex in Barangay Colongulo, Municipality of Surala, South Cotabato, from the Libertad National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Colongolo National High School, appropriating funds therefore, recommending approval without amendment, Senator Cayetano P. Committee Report number 243 by the Committees on Education, Arts and Culture, and Finance on House number 4854, introduced by Representatives Yu and Cojuangco K, an act separating the Midsalip National High School, Buloron Annex in Barangay Buloron, Midsalip, Zamboanga del Sur, from the Midsalip National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Buloron National High School, and appropriating funds therefore, recommending approval without amendment, sponsor Senator Cayetano P. Committee Report number 244 by the Committees on Education, Arts and Culture, and Finance on House number 4631, introduced by Representatives Flores and Cojuangco K, an act separating the Silae National High School, St. Peter Annex in Barangay St. Peter, City of Malay-Balay, Bukidnon, from the Silae National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as St. Peter National High School, and appropriating funds therefore, recommending approval without amendment, sponsor Senator Cayetano P. Committee Report number 245 by the Committees on Education, Arts and Culture, and Finance on House number 4288 by Representatives Bulot Degtang and Cojuangco, entitled An Act Separating the Pio Dalim Memorial School of Arts and Trades, Santa Filomena Annex in Barangay Santa Filomena, Municipal of Calanasan, Province of Apayao, from the Pio Dalim Memorial School of Arts and Trades, converting it into an independent national arts and trades high school to be known as Santa Filomena School of Arts and Trades, and appropriating funds therefore, recommending approval without amendment, Senator Cayetano P. And Committee Report number 246 by the Committees on Education, Arts and Culture, and Finance on House number 3653, introduced by Representatives Amatong I and Cojuangco K, an act separating the Bakungan National High School, Tinuyop Annex in Barangay Tinuyop, Leon B. Postigo, Zamboanga del Norte, from the Bakungan National High School, converting it into an independent national high school to be known as Tinuyop National High School, and appropriating funds therefore, recommending approval without amendment, sponsor Senator Cayetano P.
To the calendar for ordinary business. There is an additional reference of business.
Bills on first reading. Senate number 21931, entitled An Act Mandating the Integration of Professions by creating an accredited integrated professional organizations, AIPOs, for every profession, appropriating funds therefore for another purposes, by Senator Trillanes IV.
Civil Service, Government Organization, Professional Regulation, Finance.
Senate number 2932, an act expanding the definition of sexual harassment, strengthening the mechanisms to monitor compliance with policies against sexual harassment in the workplace and in educational and training institutions, and prescribing penalties for violations thereof, repealing for the purpose Republic Act number 7877, also referred to as the Sexual Harassment Act of 1995 by Senator Ramon Bong Revilla Jr.
Labor, Employment, Human Resource Development, Civil Service, Government Organization, and Professional Regulation.
Senate number 2933, an act renaming the Binakayan Diversion Road located in the Municipality of Kawit, Province of Cavite, as Island Cove Drive, Senator Ramon Bong Revilla Jr.
Public Works.
Senate number 2934, an act granting public elementary school students free admission to all public museums and national historical shrines and landmarks, Senator Ramon Bong Revilla Jr.
Education, Arts, and Culture.
Senate number 2935, an act providing pre-employment privilege to indigents by granting a discount on fees in securing pre-employment certifications and clearances from government agencies, Senator Ramon Bong Revilla Jr.
Justice, Welfare, Social Justice, Welfare, and Human Resource Development.
Senate number 2936, an act supporting the production of Philippine independent films by providing incentives to filmmakers who are given honors in notable international film competitions, Senator Ramon Bong Revilla Jr.
Public Information, Mass Media, Ways and Means, and Finance.
Senate number 2937, an act imposing reciprocity as a requirement before allowing foreign nationals to practice their professions in the Philippines to protect the interests of Filipino professionals and for other related purposes, by Senator Trillanes IV.
Civil Service, Government Organization, Professional Regulation, and Foreign Relations.
Senate Number 2938, an act declaring Pagasa Island Cluster in the municipality of Calayan, province of Palawan, as an ecotourism destination and protected area, providing funds therefore and for other purposes. Senator Sani Angara.
Environment and Natural Resources, Tourism, Finance.
Senate Number 2939, act providing honoraria and allowances, service credits, legal assistance, and indemnification package and other benefits for persons rendering election service by Senator Pimentel III.
Electoral Reforms, People's Participation, Finance.
Senate Number 2940, an act amending Section 13 of Republic Act Number 7166, otherwise known as an act providing for synchronized national and local elections and for electoral reforms, authorizing appropriations therefore and for other purposes. Senator Pimentel III.
Electoral Reforms, People's Participation, Ways and Means.
Resolutions, PS Resolution Number 1563, directing the proper Senate Committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the Commission Audit Report of Philippine Economic Zone Authority has been overpaying its personnel by a total of 697 million in salaries, allowance, and benefits from 2009 to 2014. Senator Defensor Santiago.
Finance,
PS Resolution
Trade,
Number
Commerce, and Entrepreneurship.
PS Resolution Number 1564, directing the proper Senate Committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation. The report that Cagayan Province has been placed under state of calamity due to the massive impact of the dry spell on the corn industry in the area.
Climate Change, Agriculture, and Food.
PSR Number 1565, directing the proper Senate Committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation. The report that summer execution remains a common
Committee on
practice
Justice,
among
Human Rights, Public Order, Dangerous Drugs.
PSR Number 1566, directing the proper Senate Committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation. The report that overfishing is practiced 75% of Philippine fishing
Agriculture
grounds.
and Food.
PS Number 1567, directing the proper Senate Committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation. The report that smuggled carrots continue to enter the Philippine market.
Trade, Commerce, and Entrepreneurship, Agriculture and Food, Ways and Means.
PSR Number 1568, directing the proper Senate Committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation. The report that supply of fish is dwindling in Negros and all over the country.
Committee on Agriculture and Food, Environment and Natural Resources.
PSR Number 1569, directing the proper Senate Committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the report that several towns in Lanao del Sur have not electricity
Energy.
since 2013. PS Resolution Number 1570, resolution recognizing and commending Gilas Pilipinas, the Philippine men's national basketball team, for improving the development and the status of Philippine sports, for winning the silver medal in the 2015 William Jones Cup held in Taipei, Taiwan, and initiating the RISE program as a grassroots project for sports. Senator Sani
Our
Angara.
rules.
Yes, R Number 1571, resolution recognizing and commending Michael Christian Martinez for winning the gold medal in the men's category of the 2015 Asian Open Figure Skating Trophy held in Bangkok, Thailand, 6 of August 2015.
Rules.
Senator Sani Angara. Yes, resolution number 1572, urging the appropriate Senate Committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation into the veracity of the reported harassment, killings, forced evacuations, and dispossession of ancestral lands, among others, in the communities and tribal schools in the Lumad areas in Mindanao, with the end goals of immediately putting an end to it, meting out the appropriate sanctions to those liable, and formulating legislative measures protecting, furthering, and improving the welfare and well-being of various indigenous peoples and tribes in the Philippines. Senator Grace Poe.
Cultural Communities, National Defense, and Security. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider proposed Senate Resolution number 568, taking into consideration proposed Senate Resolution number 668.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is in order.
With the consent of the Senate, may we request the Secretary to read the title of the measure?
Secretary would read the title of the measure.
Proposed Senate Resolution number 568, a resolution congratulating and commending Victoria Tauli Corpus for being named as United Nations Special Rapporteur on Indigenous Peoples' Rights.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator Lauren Legarda, the author of the resolution, or one of the authors of the resolution, to make some remarks.
Senator Legarda is recognized to sponsor the measure authored by Senator Coco Pimentel.
There are two resolutions, Mr. President.
The other resolution is authored by Senator Legarda.
That is correct, Mr. President. I was asking Senator Pimentel whether he wanted to deliver a speech, and the bar top notcher is deferring to this representation, Mr. President. So I speak for Senator Pimentel, my co-author in this measure, as well as the rest of the Senate. We are honored today, Mr. President, by the presence of two great Filipinas. One, and this is the first resolution, commends Victoria Lucia Tauli Corpus, the first indigenous woman from the Philippines to be appointed a special rapporteur on the rights of indigenous peoples by the United Nations Human Rights Council. I will not read the whole whereas clauses, as this is contained in the resolution that we will give later. I just wanted to highlight some very important aspects. First, we know that she is from the Kankanay tribe, Victoria Lucia Tauli Corpus. She was appointed Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and she is an alumna of the University of the Philippines, Manila, and founder and executive director of the Tebteba Foundation, or the Indigenous Peoples International Center for Policy, Research, and Education. And she holds a rare honor of being the first indigenous woman from the Philippines to be appointed as part of the system of thematic special procedures of the UN Human Rights Council. And this selection, a special rapporteur, is indeed a fitting recognition of her, and I quote, active involvement with the United Nations and multi-stakeholder cross-regional bodies on indigenous issues, and past collaboration with and commitment to constructive engagement among governments and indigenous peoples. Mr. President, let this whole resolution be reflected in the records of the Senate today, and may I request that everyone present here be made co-authors of this resolution. And in fact, Ms. Corpus and her daughter as well and her group are present in the gallery today.
Thank you very much, Senator Legarda. Let the record reflect the co-authorship of all senators present at this afternoon session. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we approve proposed Senate Resolution number 568, taking into consideration proposed Senate Resolution number 668, subject to style.
Any objection? Hearing none. Proposed Senate Resolution number 568, taking into consideration proposed Senate Resolution authored by Senator Legarda, be approved.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend session momentarily to allow the senators to congratulate the awardees.
And for the awardees to come up to the state, to
For
the
a
podium
photograph.
for the usual picture taking. Session is suspended. Session is resumed.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider proposed Senate Resolution number 1527.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
With the consent of the Senate, may we request the Secretary to read the title of the measure?
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
Resolution commending Ligaya Fernando Amilbangsa as a cultural advocate of Bangalay, a traditional dance from Mindanao, for her instrumental role as documenter, performer, scholar, and advocate of this unique cultural treasure.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize once again Senator Lauren Legarda, who is the sponsor of the resolution, for her remarks.
Senator Legarda is recognized to sponsor proposed Senate Resolution 1527, authored by Senator Legarda.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I mentioned earlier, we are in the presence of two great Filipino women, and one was Miss Corpus, and the second is equally worth commending, and I'm referring to Miss Ligaya Fernando Amilbangsa as a cultural advocate of Pangalay. What is Pangalay? Pangalay means gift offering or temple of dance in Sanskrit. It is a pre-Islamic dance tradition among the Samal, Bajau, Jamamapun, and the Tausugs. It features complex body postures and gestures, renowned for its graceful arm and hand movements, emphasized by the use of jangay or metal claws to the beat of the kulintangan, the gadang, agong, and gabang performed during weddings and other festivals. Miss Amilbangsa was born in Marikina, but she moved to Sulu when she married a schoolmate who was related to the Sultanate of Sulu. There she studied and perfected Pangalay in spite of non-conducive circumstances. Even with no electricity, she perfected the dance by looking at her own silhouette reflected on the wall by a lighted candle. And I may go on, and there is a very long whereas clauses, Mr. President. I just wanted to make sure that this art form, the Pangalay, which is performed by Miss Fernando, and with her group behind us here in the gallery, is duly noted and recognized by the Philippine Senate. On their own account and their own resources, they're able to teach this to the youths of our country. They've performed internationally and performed in the Philippines as well. And what we need to do perhaps is to make sure that this art form is institutionalized and supported by agencies of government. Her dedication to dance has earned her several accolades. Her alma mater, the Far Eastern University, gave her the Green and Gold Artist Award, and she has received many awards, but most recently, she received the Magsaysay Award for all her accomplishments. So therefore, Mr. President, for her love of the performing arts and for her love and devotion to Filipino culture, it is but timely and fitting for the Senate to honor this great Filipina. I submit, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I move that we approve proposed Senate Resolution number 1527, subject to style.
Any objection? Hearing none, proposed Senate Resolution number 1527 is hereby adopted, subject to style.
Mr. President, I move that we momentarily suspend session to allow the senators to congratulate the awardees.
Session suspended.
Oo nga, no?
San, pwede na. Session is resumed.
Mr. President, I move that we transfer Senate Bill number 2924 under Committee Report 216 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
With the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider Senate Bill 2924 under Committee Report 216.
Any objection? Hearing none. Consideration of the measure is in order.
With the permission of the body, I move that the Secretary read only the title of the measure.
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
Senate number 2924, an act regulating the registration, licensure, and practice of occupational therapy, providing funds therefore and for other related purposes.
I move that we recognize Senator Trillanes to sponsor the measure.
Senator Trillanes is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Civil Service, Government Reorganization, and Professional Regulation has the honor to sponsor Senate Bill number 2924, entitled An Act Regulating the Registration, Licensure, and Practice of Occupational Therapy, known as the Philippine Occupational Therapy Law of 2015. The state recognizes the importance of occupational therapists in nation building. They work in vital environments such as schools, nursing homes, hospitals, and workplaces, and assist people in overcoming various occupational related problems. They enhance people and communities' ability to engage in the occupations they want to, need to, and are expected to do. However, the current law regulating the standard of practice of occupational therapists may no longer be attuned to the international standard of practice and the changing healthcare needs locally and internationally. RA number 5680 regulates two different allied health professions, physical therapy and occupational therapy, unlike other regulatory acts that enforce the law on one profession. This is despite the fact that physical therapy is recognized as a separate and distinct profession from occupational therapy in terms of definition, scope of practice, and educational requirements. Since its enforcement 46 years ago, said law has never been amended to address this concern and updated this regulatory framework in light of the increasing demand for highly competitive Filipino occupational therapists and the challenges being brought by the ASEAN Mutual Recognition Arrangement and the ASEAN Economic Community. It is in this light that your committee seeks your support for the early passage of SBN 2924. This measure seeks to recognize occupational therapy as an independent medical profession from physical therapy and to align its regulatory frameworks with international standards of practice. This measure also seeks to define the practice of occupational health and its coverage, create and identify the composition of Board of Occupational Therapy, provide for the licensing of occupational therapists, mandate the institution of a continuing professional development program for occupational therapists, allow the practice of foreign occupational therapists provided that the country of which he or she is a subject or citizen grants the same privilege to Filipino occupational therapists, and to integrate the profession into one national professional organization or accredited professional organization. Mr. President, this presentation believes in the importance of occupational health as a form of investment in our human resource and is a key to a stronger and healthier citizenry. It is the intention of this measure to complement the talents and skills of our occupational therapists and elevate and effectively promote it to a level that is responsive to the local and international healthcare needs. Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2924 under Committee Report 216.
Consideration, the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, I move that we transfer Senate Bill number 2925 under Committee Report number 217 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
Sorry.
I move that we transfer Senate Bill 2925 under Committee Report 217 from the
So
calendar.
transferred.
With the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider Senate Bill 2925 under Committee Report 217.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
With the permission of the body, I move that the Secretary read only the title of the measure.
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
Senate Bill number 2925, an act regulating the practice of speech-language pathology in the Philippines, providing funds therefore and for other purposes.
Once again, I move that we recognize Senator Trillanes, Mr. President, to sponsor the measure.
Senator Trillanes is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Civil Service, Government Reorganization, and Professional Regulation has the honor to sponsor Senate Bill number 2925. Mr. President, the state recognizes the important role of speech-language pathologists in our country. They are highly educated professionals who assess, diagnose, and manage disorders related to communication and swallowing in order to reach full communicative abilities. It is just proper that the government promote the development of our speech-language pathologists whose standards of professional service are globally competitive through a regulatory framework that fosters their continuing professional growth and development. However, at present, there is a lack of the proper mechanism for the licensure and government accreditation and registration of the speech-language pathologists here in the Philippines. In order to address this gap and in anticipation of the influx of practitioners from other countries due to the upcoming ASEAN integration, this committee seeks your support for the early and expeditious passage of SBN 2925. Once passed into law, this measure will create a mechanism for licensure, registration of speech-language pathologists, create a professional regulatory board of speech-language pathology, which shall supervise and regulate the registration, licensure, and practice of speech-language pathology in the Philippines. Similar to other professional regulatory laws that we recently enacted, This measure also seeks to mandate the institution of a continuing professional development program, allow the practice of foreign speech language pathologists in the country, provided that the same privileges are accorded to Filipino speech language pathologists in their country, and integrate the professionals in the field into one accredited and integrated professional organization. There is no doubt that our speech language pathologists are at par or even better with their foreign counterparts. But in this era of globalization, the enactment of a proper regulatory framework that will guide our practitioners and complement their skills cannot be overemphasized. Hence, the early passage of this measure is most respectfully requested. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Trillanes.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill 2925 under Committee Report 217.
Consideration measure is suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill 5842 under Committee Report 213. This is the bill on Social Security, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Assumption of the consideration of Committee Report number 2 of House Bill number 5842 and Senate Bills number 15, 220, 451, 1498, 2879, 2888 under Committee Report 213 is in order.
I move that we recognize Senator Recto to co-sponsor the measure.
For the co-sponsorship speech, Senator Recto is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. If people will be quizzed on what's that government building along East Avenue in Quezon City with so much money, those in the know will most probably answer the Central Bank Mint. But there's another office across it that it is also awash with cash, the Social Security System. There is, however, a big difference on how they were able to hoard cash. The central bank merely prints money, while the SSS pulls it from the mandatory contribution of its members. If there is one trait that these institutions share, it is how they guard their coffers. The BSP is ringed by armed guards, a deep moat, and a tall fence. The SSS protected by stewards who exercise vigilance so that its funds would not go dry. Which means that while over at the BSP compound, bales of paper bills are forklifted into armored vans for distribution, the sentinels at SSS are conservators who calibrates the release of benefits carefully. And so they should. Why? Because Social Security pension is a long-term savings paid one day at a time. If it is a safety net for old age, sickness, or disability, then the strings are woven by installment through mandatory salary deductions. Or you can call these contributions a generational time deposit, one that will be redeemed after the present generation of workers has retired from work. The kind of nest egg a member can look forward to when he finally comes home after decades of labor and battling traffic and hollers to his wife, "Honey, I am home forever." Kaya wala naman talagang forevermore sa pagbabayad ng SSS contribution. Or to borrow a line from a song popular a generation ago, hindi yan pag-aambag hanggang sa dulo ng walang hanggan. The SSS contribution is a payroll tax. But unlike conventional taxes, it is inflicted on both the employee and the employer. And as a tax, its payment is compulsory in nature, which is why it is withheld at source, and its evasion, if done by an employer, sanctionable. Under the current scheme, every 1 peso plunked in by the employee is matched by his employer's share of 2 pesos. So an employee who earns 16,000 a month contributes 1,790 pesos monthly to the SSS, 582 out of his pay, and 1,208 out of his boss's profit. On paper, there are 32.5 million SSS members who fork over their 1/3 share monthly, and 921,825 employers who who give their 2/3 equity. But according to the SSS, only 1/3, or between 10 to 11 million, of its 32.5 million registered members are paying. The rest, or about 21 million, are either in arrears or have abandoned or have developed amnesia on their Social Security obligations. Yet they were able to remit 120.6 billion in contributions last year. But SSS does not merely amass money, it apportions them. It shares with its stockpiles. Last year, it paid out 102.6 billion in benefits. Of this amount, the largest chunk, 89.5 billion, went to the system's 1.9 million pensioners. The rest, or about 13.1 billion, was spent for maternity benefits, death benefits, and burial assistance claims. Because SSS is a cradle-to-grave aid provider, then it is possible for a member to get help from it from his first cry to his last breath. And indeed, many were born into this world by mothers in SSS-paid maternity wards and sent off courtesy of an SSS-paid service. But this bill deals with life between these two milestones, specifically the period when a member has to enjoy the fruits of his contribution. So today I plead the cause of 1.9 million SSS pensioners, those who have come before us and worked hard so that we may have a better life. At their peak, they were productive workers. Freeloaders, they were not. What they are getting now from the SSS are not entitlements. They had no participation in raising. It is made possible not by the grace of the state, but by the grit of their work. They amortize their contributions religiously every payday, in the hope that what was deducted from their take-home pay today would take them to a comfortable life one day. In 2012, about 81.5%, or roughly 1.5 million, of our pensioners were receiving a monthly pension below 4,000 pesos. This is less than the daily minimum wage and certainly below the poverty line. Today, 4,000 pesos can barely stock the medicine cabinet with drugs, much less the cupboard with food. Our elderly survive as much on a cocktail of medicines, from simvastatin to tame elevated cholesterol, to beta blockers to deflate high blood pressure, and metformin to control their blood sugar level, as on consuming healthy calories. Yet while their sugar level rises, the value of the pension they receive, from which they get the money to bring it down, decreases. According to a report, the value of 1,000 in the year 2000 has since gone down by 43%. Rice then was 20 pesos a kilo. Beer was 10 pesos a bottle. And the true value of 10,000 in 2010 is about 8,000 today. The erosion of the purchasing power, courtesy of that known culprit called inflation. Thus, it is not only that the pension has gone down the slippery slope, those who receive it are hanging tenaciously on that slope too. Unless to prevent their fall, we give them a helping hand. How? By increasing their pension and saving them from the abyss of unfathomable misery. Which is why, on the first week of the first month of the first regular session of this Congress, I filed Senate Bill 451, which provides for an increase in SSS pension. My bill has been consolidated into Senate Bill 2879, the one on the floor today. The consolidated bill seeks an increase-the-board increase of 2,000 on the monthly SSS pension. In effect, those receiving the minimum pension of 1,200 per month will now receive 3,200 under this bill. The average SSS pensioner gets about 3,169 a month. If this bill becomes law, his pension will increase to 5,169. Of course, this bill carries a price tag, estimated at 48 billion annually. It can be viewed narrowly as a cost or seen as 48 billion peso boost to the purchasing power of our elderly and for the domestic economy. They will not put this under their pillow, but plow it back to the economy. They may have many ailments, but unlike government, underspending is not one of them. In fact, chronic lack of money to spend is what boggles them. There are concerns that raising pension payouts will lead to the early evaporation of SSS money. This is a valid point, but I do not subscribe to the doomsday scenario likening the increase in pension to blasting a hole underneath a water tank. With regard to funding the higher benefits, increasing its membership base is among the most plausible solution to improve revenue collections. One estimate pegs at only 30% the number of employees who ought to be SSS members under the law. In other words, 70% of potential members are not captured by the system. Although they cannot be compelled to be members, I believe we can raise Social Security compliance by marketing SSS membership as an investment instrument with a high rate of return. Expanding the base is essential to its sustainability. The more active worker per pensioner, the healthier the books of a pension system is, and the brighter its future would be. Actuarial longevity of any pension hinges on a good worker pension ratio. For those already in the system, the SSS must take a hardline position against those who violate the required membership registration. It must run after employers who run away with their employees' membership contribution. In fact, theoretically, improving its collection efficiency can even result in lower contribution schedule for members. The SSS can also consider seriously other forms of investment in order to increase its revenue from its investable funds as may be allowed by its charter. Another pathway is government subsidy. Should this be resorted to, I believe one option is to subsidize the membership of the marginalized members of society who are still outside the system because they have difficulty paying their SSS contribution. It is not orthodoxy to suggest that government help can come in on the other end from the intake of contributions instead of the outtake of benefits. Lastly, in order to provide the present pensioners better benefits and at the same time ensuring that the future retirement benefits of current members will be at a better rate, the SSS can institute structural reforms and be more creative in devising a contribution schedule in order to increase the fund life and introduce a more equitable contribution scheme. For those who want to contribute more, they should be allowed to do so. For those who want to save more, so they would reap higher yields, they should not be prevented from doing so. At the moment, there is a statutory cap in the computation of the monthly contribution peg at the maximum of 16,000 monthly salary credit. Hence, salaries higher than this amount are required to contribute the same amount of 1,790. Under the present system, a clerk who earns 16,000 pesos monthly or a driver who earns 16,000 monthly will have a contribution of 1,790 monthly or 11% of his salary. While a manager, for instance, with a salary amounting to 90,000 pesos will have the same contribution of 1,790 but only 2% of his salary. The SSS contribution is considered a payroll tax. However, its schedule does not mimic the features of a progressive tax system. The SSS can therefore consider lifting the cap on the highest salary bracket and design an optional contribution schedule so that those receiving higher salaries can have the option to contribute a higher percentage of their salary. Another option is to source the funding requirement from the IRF, the Investment Reserve Fund, which stands at about 450 billion. I am not saying that this will solely fund the deficit. The required outlay can have multiple funding sources, from membership expansion to even trimming management overhead to IRF. Though I would caution against massive drawdowns from the IRF to fund the pension increase, I take the position that getting a reasonable amount from the IRF is not a sacrilegious idea, even by those who worship an extreme form of pension management. Mr. President, the executive has gone on a full court press to stop this bill. Through various means and emissaries, it has signaled its intention to veto this bill. My advice to them is that instead of plainly saying no, it should offer some alternatives, solutions, even how to fund the increase in the long term. In lawmaking, there are times when we should stand our ground, and there are times when we should find common ground. The last one entails manifesting openness to an idea instead of automatically shooting it down. The executive should abandon its no increase stand. Its input should not be solely confined to immovable opposition, but engagement to find that common ground. Let us challenge the SSS to study the details of the above proposals. The SSS, considering its actuarial status, will effectively have more than a decade to figure out how to cope up with this proposed increase in benefits. On the other hand, our poor pensioners cannot wait a day more for better benefits so that they may survive. Increasing the monthly pension of those who spent the best years of their lives paying the SSS payroll tax so they can be comfortable in their last years will show them that we care. If the economy is good as they claim it is, then perhaps they who worked hard to make the prosperity we now enjoy deserve better, bigger dividends. But this bill is not driven by pure sentimental stuff alone. It is anchored on studies that such an increase is feasible and fundable. Mr. President and my dear colleagues, this is not a long sponsorship speech for a significant bill. After all, measures that increase benefits to the vulnerable are self-explanatory and do not need elaborate justification. I earnestly appeal for your support and to the passage of this very important bill. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Senator Rector.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill 5842 under Committee Report 213.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, I move that we adjourn session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, September 9, 2015.
Session is adjourned until September 9, Wednesday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.